to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene into closed session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government or body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85(1) C for the regular education aid position and the superintendent's self-evaluation. Did we have any guests
Yes.
to speak under guest comments?
Yes.
And who's that?
Mr. Ben Ricola?
Are you speaking under guest comments, or did you want to speak before
I
we
checked
open the plan?
I checked the agenda item.
Oh, the agenda item, okay. We don't have the gentleman here to do the presentation on the audit, so if he shows up, we'll wait in for him, but we'll pass by that item right now. Does anyone wish any items removed from the consent agenda? If there are none, then the consent agenda is approved by consent. And that includes a donation from the Whitefish Bay Association of $1,500 for the People Services Activity Fund. So thanks to that group. We'll start with administrative reports, and we certainly want to hear what's going on, but I heard this week what a great job the students and staff did with the food drive, so I wondered if you'd tell us a little bit about that so we can all know.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the food drive. It truly was a tremendous success this year. And even though we weren't able to collect as many food items as we have in past years, that was definitely supplemented by donations from our staff, our community, and other organizations throughout our area. This year, we talked about whether or not we should make this a really big focus with our students, because we didn't know if our families could sacrifice food this year. So what we did instead is we reached out to our staff. We wanted to model giving, and they more than stepped up. We collected over $4,000 that was donated back to our students. We were able to support multiple families, and I won't give the numbers out, but there are a lot of families that did demonstrate a need this year, and we were able to support them. Not only with the gift cards to Econo Foods and some of our other grocery stores, retailers, but also with toys this year. We were able to add toys and have wrapped gifts for all of the families that received donations. So we collected, I think, 60 or so, over 60 boxes of food. And those are the paper-sized boxes of food, so there's probably 30, 40 items in each box. So we had over 60 boxes of food. In addition, we had over $4,000 worth of gift cards to grocery stores. And this was equally distributed amongst many families through our Sevastopol community solely. So it was a tremendous success. I appreciate how everybody stepped up. There were a lot of people responsible for this. And I mean, just to name a few on all of our staff, I think our guidance counselors did a wonderful job. Mr. Kint did a wonderful job. And when I say guidance counselor, Holly Retzloff, Melissa Melkor. Who else? Help me recognize
The
some people.
trauma-sensitive team, Jen Eisner, did a lot of legwork in that as well. And the other, it was nice to know that within the Sevastopol community, but it was also outside of the community. So I want to definitely recognize and thank the United Way for their contributions to every one of the families as well. So it really was fantastic to see our own community contribute, but then our outside agencies who we work with every day, who also recognize that, that they can contribute to what our families need during this difficult time. So it was pretty spectacular to see it all come together. And I know over the next couple of days that we are going to be delivering those boxes and what goes with it to our families. So it is a pretty wonderful feeling to be able to give back like that.
We started the delivers today, and you see the look on the kids' faces when we were able to give them presents is quite inspiring. It was really a pleasure. And it just shows how strong this community is, and during a very challenging time, the support that we can generate for those in need is amazing.
few other people to mention. Mr. Kent for organizing at the high school level. I know that Ms. Newman at our level, as well as Ms. Saunders for helping out. And kind of dovetailing with that, the need for food and that kind of stuff. I know the community was very appreciative of the food drive, or the driving out of food that we did from Casey and the food service team, similar to what we did in the spring. Very quickly they were able to organize and put things together for putting together the list of people to go on the buses. And I know that some of the drivers had gotten comments from parents about how appreciative they were for that delivery.
There was 437 meals, or 437 kids who received the meals, and it was 10 meals worth of food. So it was quite a large bag.
If I could add one more thing too, all the kids and families got Christmas cookies as well. So Christmas cookies were baked, and grade level teams went down and helped ice all of them, and they were also part of the package that went to every one of our students' homes. So again, I can't echo again, it's been a special time.
It's great. Doesn't help with everything, but it's a little bit of help.
It's a little
time
bit.
of year. So thanks for telling us about that. And I'll move on to school business. Start with Mrs. Margraf tonight.
I would like to highlight too, just, with my report, just the continuous effort that our staff makes as we go in and out of different learning environments. So we're in the virtual environment right now, and I had the opportunity to watch some of the virtual classes, watch some of our teachers at work, and it was really inspiring for me to see what they do. Because I can talk about virtual learning, but it's different when you are in the classroom and watching it happen. And very, very inspiring what I saw our teachers do. From the pupil services perspective, some of the things I want to highlight is just the personal touches that our staff do for students who are in that don't have internet, that definitely don't have the benefits of logging on and being a part of that. So there's lots of drop off and pickup of work, going to the houses themselves, doing personal Google Meets and phone calls at the same time. A day in the life of one of our special education teachers was that, 2 kids on Google Meets and doing a personal phone call. But we're doing whatever it takes for our kids to be successful in any learning environment that they're in. So it was really neat to see that. Ms. Saunders and her team for our English language, they're going and doing multiple pickup and drop-offs of work because that's what's needed to get done so the kids can demonstrate their learning during this time. And the only other thing I want to highlight too is, and it's different for another part of my role, but as the district assessment coordinator, I just want to highlight that when January hits, that's when we start preparing for our state assessments. And my report talks a lot about the state assessments, but I want the board to know right now, and everyone to know that right now it's scheduled that all of our state assessments are going. So come spring, our kids will be taking the ACT, they will be taking the forward exam, they will be taking the dynamic learning maps and the access test, and so we got to start preparing for that as well. So it'll be a busy time come spring, but
So how did they get it from remote?
Pardon me?
How are you going to do it? We're still in remote mode.
Yeah.
How do you do an ACT test from remote?
Well, the good thing about the ACT test is that it's one day.
Right.
So we can do that for our juniors. But the other tests are kind of tricky, because our access test and our forward test and our Aspire test, they're multiple tests over multiple days. So what that means for us is if we're in the A-B environment, that's going to take a long time for all that testing to get done. What the state has done for us is they've extended the testing window. So we have more time, but it's going to be a balance of getting those state requirements done and then also giving the kids the curriculum that they need in a more condensed environment in the AB schedule. Sevastopol is lucky because we have in-person learning. There's some schools that are they're completely virtual, that have to have their kids come in and take these state assessments. So if state assessments go forward, at least Sevastopol's in a pretty good position because we have our kids in the building, and that's a benefit.
Any other questions for Mrs. Margraf?
Just a comment. thanks for doing that dyslexia Zoom session on the 10th, I think, of December, and also the Parent Cafe on the 15th. And Tracy, I know, has been involved with that and her parent group, so those are great
Yeah,
opportunities.
we hope to continue those, and in January and February, we want to do the parent cafes again. So, but yeah,
Great.
thank you for recognizing that.
Good resources.
Mr. Kaczmarski, did you have any questions for Mrs. Margraf?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hiltz?
I'd just like to echo what Ms. Margraf had said. It's nice to see our staff take on the responsibility of making sure that those kids are still learning and engaged, even though that they're at home. At the elementary, it's a little bit trickier just because we don't have everybody who has access to the internet. Nonetheless, for those that do, I know teachers made themselves available and provided Google Meets, and a lot of kids did take them up on those offers to be able to engage. So that was nice to see. Probably the biggest thing I would like to share is just how difficult it's been the last few days as we lead into the Christmas holiday. In a typical year, this is really one of those times of year where there's so much buzz in the building. There's just a lot of energy. People are excited in anticipation of a break coming up, in anticipation of what's going to happen during that break. And so it's just very odd, almost surreal to be in the building and know that those things are coming up, and it's just so quiet. To that end, one of the things that I'm going to send out is a video reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So I'll share that with the board as well, but I'll ask the teachers to send that out yet this weekend or early next week before the holidays.
People love those. Okay, any questions for Mr. Hiltz? Hearing none, Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. I just read over my report before the meeting this morning, and I realized how much has changed. We submit these a week and a half before the meeting, obviously, and a lot has changed in that week and a half, and we've made a lot of adjustments. And I just want to send my appreciation, as the other administrators have done, to the students and to the staff. And the reason that I do that is because we've entered this virtual world, not because we want to be there, but because it's the best choice for our kids right now. And our students have responded wonderfully. I not only have joined classes, but I've actually joined Zoom meetings and sat in several classes the last couple of days where I'm a participant of the class. And it's just amazing to see that curriculum is moving forward. Teachers are teaching real content. Kids are engaged in the lessons. None of us would choose this as our preference, but I really believe everybody involved is making the best out of the situation. Hopefully this is a small window and we can return to in-person. That's what we all want to do. Our staff wants that, but right now I'll tell you, it is inspiring to watch kids participate still in a Phi Ed class, as well as a math class, and look at the differences and see how teachers are being creative to engage students in discussion and dialogue, which is difficult through a screen. But they are doing the best that they possibly can, and I've truly appreciated that. Many of the things that I have on my agenda will be moving forward. As I did last year, just like this year, we don't hope to cancel anything. We hope to find alternatives, safe alternatives, so that will be the case. We've already been able to reschedule the high school play. Gift of the Magi will be presented, we think, now on January 8th, 9th, and 10th with the board's approval. So we're moving forward with all of these things that are important to our school. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Bear? Okay, hearing none, I guess we'll break and ask the auditor to come forward for his presentation. You were Mr.
This is Mr. David McCoo from CLA Clifton Larson Allen. He is the principal for the team of auditors that was here in late August or September and did our year-end 2019-2020 audit. And the packet that you have in front of you is what he is going to discuss. Mr. McCoo.
Okay, thank you. There's two documents I want to go through. One is the bond document. So this is the financial statements of the district, and it's for the year ended June 30th of 2020. A couple key things. A lot of what I want to go through, we kind of summarized in our executive summary, but I just want to kind of walk you through the format of the audit report and what it contains. So The most important part of it is actually starting on page 1, and that is going to page 3. So that's what we call the independent auditor's report. So really, this is our report to the Board of Education of the district. We indicate in the first paragraph that these contains all of the required financial statements of the district. The second paragraph indicates that these are management's financial statements. So when we do the audit, we take the financial information of the district and prepare the financial statements off of the information that is contained. So we're using the same information that you are receiving when you're reviewing the financial reports, and that is really the basis of our audit. So it's the district's financial responsibility to prepare the financial statements. Excuse me. Our responsibility, as identified in 3 paragraphs, is to opine on these financial statements. So if we turn to page 2, page 2 indicates that in our opinion, the financial statements that you have in front of you present fairly in all material respects. So what that means is we would make no modifications to the financial statements.
No, I take one step back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all right.
We would make no modifications to the financial statements. We believe it accurately reflects the financial position and results of operations. The next couple paragraphs really talk about, in addition to the financial statements, there's other reports, there's other information, there's a report on the state aids and the federal aids that the district receives. So not only are we looking at the financial statements that you have in front of you, but we also review the district's compliance with applicable laws and regulations related to the federal and state grants that you do receive. As a governmental entity, compliance with the requirements of those grants is an important part of illustrating your financial responsibility for them. So we did not have any non-compliance with any of the grant agreements in our audit. Then if we turn to page 4 and page 5 are what we call the government-wide financial statements. So these are not how you adopt your annual budget, but it really reflects the long-term aspect of the district, looking at all the assets, looking at all the liabilities of the district. So when you adopt a budget, you're really looking at short-term, current year revenues, current year expenses. Pages 4 and 5 are really looking long-term. Okay, what is our financial position as a district? What has happened from an asset perspective, etc. So a couple of key points to point out. First thing on total assets. You do see total assets increase from about 33 million to about 42.8. So major reason for that is primarily some additional funding within the cash and investments and some of the operating results in the general fund. We'll talk about that when we go through the executive summary. But also you'll also see you got about $1 billion item called net pension assets. So that's the district's proportionate share of the Wisconsin retirement system. So last year it's a liability. If you go down to the middle of the page, you see net pension liability of about $1 million. So that's not a liability that you can pay. It's not an asset you can go pay a bill with. But it really reflects the long-term financial position of the retirement system. Why it converts from an asset to a liability and back and forth is really heavily reliant on the market return. So 2019 was a very good investment year for the retirement system. They beat the projections of a 7% return. As a result, they had higher returns and converted it into an asset. So that'll fluctuate above and down like it has the last couple of years, but really want to reflect the fact that the Wisconsin retirement system, as a retirement benefit to your employees, is a well-funded plan, one of the best of the Wisconsin, or one of the best of the state plans. If it isn't the best and best funded, it is the second best funded. So very strong retirement plan for your employees. The other part, you look at liabilities, you can see your total liabilities went up a little bit. Primarily that's due to some additional long-term debt borrowing that you did in fiscal year 2020. And then the last component is your net position. Your net position did go up from about 10.5 to about 13.2. Primary reason is you're reinvesting in the facilities of the district, you're paying down debt, et cetera. So a real strong operating results in 2020. The rest of the report is a lot of financial statements. I kind of go through the budgetary compliance. Nothing unusual or significant in those reports. Like I said, we do summarize it in the second document. So you can go to the staple document, which is entitled, it's kind of what we call our executive summary. It kind of summarizes the audit. We'll walk through the executive summary and board communication. So if we turn to page 1 of this document, really here's a summary of, from a financial perspective, what happened in 2020 and how it compared to the prior year. So we already talked about the audit opinion. That was pages 1 to 3 that we walked through. As I indicated, you had a modified opinion, also known as a clean opinion. That's the opinion you can't receive. With respect to internal controls, there are 2 items related to financial reporting and 2 items related to compliance that we do report as deficiencies. These are deficiencies primarily because of the size of the district. So, one relates to segregation of duties, both on the financial reporting and the preparation of federal and state awards. And the other both deal with reporting for either your financial statements or your federal and state awards. So these are just indicating that we help prepare the financial statements of the district. The district does review, approve, and finalize the report, but we are involved in the preparation of the financial statements. And these are very consistent for municipality or any type of government, school districts that are your size. So it's nothing unusual. Oftentimes I get, why do you present it then? It's more to understand that as a board, you're overseeing the financial results. You have responsibility. So as you approve and question items and ask questions, we consider those compensating controls over the controls of the district. So it's more to emphasize your role in managing the district and your responsibility. The last paragraph is the general fund balance. So you can see your general fund balance did increase about $572,000. If you look at the projected budget, you were projected to decrease your fund balance by about $250,000. So what that's really reflective is of a strong budget year. Obviously, some of that related to COVID and some expenditures that were incurred. A lot of our, almost every school district that we've audited had a very strong return because some of the reductions of some of the ongoing operating costs or utility bills, et cetera, as school districts went virtual in March. But I mean, really strong budget year. Your ending fund balance in the general fund is a little over $6 million. That represents about 59% of your operating expenses. So it puts you in a nice position to be able to handle operating results, any type of unusual items that occur from needing additional funding, etc. So from that perspective, we believe the district's in a very strong position as you enter the current year. Starting on page 2 is really our communication to the board. So we are required to communicate how the audit went. We are required to communicate if there's any questionable accounting practices or changes or accounting estimates. If you go through these pages, we indicate that there are no unusual or accounting policies, that all the transactions were appropriately managed and handled by the district. On the bottom of page 2, we do talk about estimates. We do review estimates. The estimates are reasonable and appropriate and consistent. The bottom of page 3 talks about did we have difficulties in completing the audit? How did the audit go? Were there any uncorrected misstatements? And so if you go through that, we did not have any difficulties. All adjustments that we proposed were posted. And the adjustments none were considered significant to a point of identifying it too. So from that perspective, that indicates that the district and the staff of the district did a very nice job in managing your operations in 2020. And then on pages 4 and 5, just kind of go through additional information, nothing unusual. Management of the district was very cooperative, and obviously with COVID and some of the remoteness and interactions, the audit went very well from our perspective. We do appreciate the staff here at the district. Then we turn to page 6. Page 6 just looks at your fund balances. We saw the first category is your general fund. We talked a little bit about that, how it went up about $572,000, which indicates a strong budget year. The next category is your debt service fund. That went up from $65 to a little under $1 million. Primary reasons is additional levy for the debt service that was coming due on some of the borrowing that had occurred, and also about $374,000 on a bond premium that was received in 2020 that is put into the debt service for retirement. Then if you look at your capital project funds, or your community service, basically it was consistent. Capital project funds, you do have 2. One is your long-term. You did put another about $104,000 into your long-term capital plan to be used into the future. And then your capital projects, you had about $23 million entering the current year for some of the renovations that were occurring. If you look at the bottom, your fund balance is well within the range of 20 to 25%. We talked about it being 50. That allows you not to have to short-term borrow, put you in a strong cash position. Any questions on that? Then starting on page 7, just some technical information on new standards that we will work with the district in the future to implement. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that anyone may have with anything in either of these documents, or any questions on how an audit has occurred, or what we do as part of the audit. Any questions?
One
Mr.
comment I
Kaczynski, I know
will,
you're at a huge disadvantage because you don't have the documents. Do you have any questions though for the auditor?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for the audit report, and if I can, so thank you, to Carl, for helping through this process, because I think the report sounds very good. Thanks.
one comment I will make, when the audit says that we are 572,000 gained in our fund balance, that's already been taken, or it's already gone away with all the additional COVID stuff that we had to buy this year and that. So when you see that fund balance, what we gained by not having expenses last year, that's already been spent with additional expenses we had to do this year. So we're still in a good position, but not as good as what the reports say that we are right now.
It's a point in time reference.
Exactly.
The report's a snapshot in time.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions for? It
Dave?
seems like you had so much work, we should have lots of questions.
I will say, Dave, I have a copy for you that if you want, I can mail to your house. You can stop and pick it up sometime.
I will stop and pick it up, Carl.
All right, I got a copy for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Thanks for your time. Okay, Mrs. Tank, did you want to speak to gifted and talented and athletics,
Sure,
or
I think
just
so.
here to observe tonight?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
You guys, I'm sure, have read through my reports that I submitted. Just kind of quickly summarize, starting with gifted and talented first. It's been a really fun journey starting this program and working with Melissa, the administrative team, and all the teachers, rolling out something brand new to our district that is needed, and we've grown throughout this process. I think everybody that's been a part of it, and we're kind of proud to say that we're at the point now where we have our whole program's philosophy. We met today with the principals as well and Melissa to kind of review how far we've come as far as how we've identified our kids, how we're meeting their needs at different levels, the services we're about to provide, and how we're communicating with families. So virtual learning kind of put a little glitch in our system as far as rolling everything out kind of full steam. So as soon as we get back to in-person learning, it's 33 of our students, their differentiated accountability plans will be up and running. So it's been a really nice process. We're happy with where we're at, and we're open to making changes along the way. So I think that's been going wonderful. Some things I'm working on you know, at the middle school level is finding time to get into their rotation so I can really get in with those kids. And those things will start to begin in February. So exciting times there. In the athletic director world here, you know, I've been completing all of the evaluations of our fall coaches that had a completed season. So all of the fall evaluations are done with our coaches. And then the other thing has really been managing the quarantines of our athletes on a daily basis, checking in with the nurses, communicating information out to our coaches, checking in with our athletes to see how they are doing. And also, you know, a lot of rescheduling of these games. It has impacted our girls basketball and boys basketball teams in a big way right now. We've lost a lot of games. We're probably halfway through our season essentially by the time we get back up and running. And so figuring out a game plan for getting games in, getting our athletes hopefully back on the court healthy, focus being on academics as well. And so that's kind of what we've been managing here over this last month or so. Other exciting things is we've continued to work on our relationship with the town of Sevastopol. We have gotten some estimates from Hutchinson Property Services. Kyle was there and Mark Hain as well to look at fixing the left field at the town park of the baseball diamond because it has always had really horrible drainage issues. And so we got some estimates there and we're working through that with the town on how we will go about possibly paying for that. And then again, we're meeting with the town again in January to look back at what are we going to do over the next 3 years. We have some ideas for how we would like to work together to improve things. So I would say our relationship with the town continues to improve and we continue to be moving the ball forward. Yeah, so that's where we are at in the athletic world. And I would just like to add that Sevastopol has successfully been running athletics since July 1st. When we have been given the opportunity to give the green light to do athletics, we have done so successfully across our building. And our coaches have put in a lot of extra time with screening. Our athletes are trying to do their best to follow those guidelines. And the athletes, we've had lots of good feedback from parents how supportive, how thankful they are that we have provided something during this time. But we are also understanding that academics is very important at this time. And being in school for our athletes is important. And we, as an athletic department, are committed to doing what we need to do in order to keep our athletes and students safe, however that may be. So that's what I'd like to share.
Any questions for Mrs. Pink on the gifted and talented end?
I just had a comment back on air, and I was asleep at the switch.
Okay.
I just want to compliment you again on the reading challenge. I don't think we can enough get the message to parents how it is important, so important for them to sit down with, especially the younger kids, and read with them night after night. Because if anything, it's the ability to read which eventually closes the economic challenge that they may face if they're coming from an underserved home, an economically depressed home, to get them to the level to be able to compete with those who come from middle class, upper middle class homes where parents are reading to them all the time. And I don't know if there's a mechanism. I don't know if all parents even understand the importance of reading to their kids. And so if there's any way we can develop a program to get that message out to the parents, take 10 minutes a night and sit down and read a book for your kids, read along with them. It opens up so many opportunities for those kids later on in life. So again, congratulations, thank you very much.
Good comments. Any questions for Mrs. Tank on the gifted and talented or athletic programs? If we don't have any, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I think two things I want to highlight is We always do a senior citizen luncheon with a Christmas concert with the elementary kids. Obviously, we didn't have the Christmas concert for the elementary kids. Typically, we serve 60 to 80 meals for the senior citizens. Casey and his crew did a pickup on Tuesday of those meals. We had 41 people make reservations and pick up their meals on that day. Typically, he gets about 15 reservations for the 60 to 80 meals. We knew the number would be down this year, so it's nice that the senior citizens still came and got their meals, and it was down, but we figured it'd be down. And as far as staffing goes, when we went remote last week, we made a decision last week, Wednesday. I just want to let you know, this Monday and Tuesday, we had over 20, 21, 22 aides or teachers out for the district out of 74, 17 of which were COVID related. So, and 5 of them were over the weekend we picked up. So I'm very glad we switched to remote because we would have been even more shorthanded come Monday morning. So it's just, but now it's going to get a little better because we got a couple more that came back today. So we're in a better place today on Thursday than we were on Monday, Tuesday. But we would have never been able to man the building with those extra 5 we lost over the weekend.
I do not have anything. Communication committee met on December 7th. That seems like a long time ago. Jerry, did you want to report on that?
Just that I think we came to an agreement that when we get ready, we already start talking about your 100th anniversary. And that we would probably come to the schools for some money to help. You might do that, you only have the chance to do that once every 100 years, so you might as well do it right. And to have somebody, professional help us put together some type of document for that, so we're starting to talk about that, but they'll be here before you know it.
And almost 25 years ago, when it was 75th, they did have an outside source of funding for a project for coming up, whatever it was. I wasn't here at the time, but there was a source to help with that project.
Because that's a lot to ask for your staff to do their regular job and then get involved in the 100th anniversary edition or something. You know.
So
Yeah,
right
a lot of
now,
ideas, though.
so right now we're working on a summer edition paying tribute to the school that's coming down. The structure, not the school district and the history, but the structure. They talked about the Winter Pioneer Times edition and what would go into that. That's primarily staff written. And we'll be talking probably next year about 100 years and starting to plan for that. So
It's a good group, though.
that's where that committee is going. Property, building, and security. Dave, did you want to talk about property, security, and building? The meeting that we had?
Well, I might be tough over the phone. I just, yeah, the only thing I was going to say, I don't have any notes really in front of me, but someone's going to go through the details of what we're investing in, and I think it's time, and I said it's relevant to our maintenance budgets. And the only thing I think is good to echo that I took out of some of the meetings is for, which I think is worth saying, if you can hear me okay, for the last at least 15 years, if not more, we really minimized our maintenance budget because we knew we had a very old, aging building. So we've had to have more money on hand in case of something catastrophic. And I think the good news with the referendum approving and the building underway, much of that liability and maintenance surprise, it's reduced our risk anyways. And I think that's allowed us to now focus on the school we're sticking around, and I think that supports a lot of the budget and the maintenance actions that we're looking at in our maintenance planning, which came up that we discussed at the building. So I don't have really the details, but I think it was a good group, and I'm excited about where we're moving on. That's all I had.
Board members, you have a paper in front of you called Projects for Sevastopol School District, December 8th. Mr. Ludke, do you want to highlight
Sure,
on any of that?
Now, some of these are going to be within the building project. We have we started with $1 million in contingency funds for the building project, and to date we've spent about $300,000. So our contingency money is doing pretty well. We're about halfway through the construction, and we're way under in that area, which is good. And for example, like they dug out the bedrock already, and they had an allotment of money for digging up bedrock, and we still have $93,000 in that account, or that line item. We have to save that though until the end, because when they knock down the 1924 and 46 sections, they may find something underneath when they're doing their digging, and then so some of that may diminish some. Myron and Bray are very confident though that it won't be at the $93,000 mark, it'll be under that. And then the demolition project of the 1924 and 46 sections, the original bid was $848,000. We didn't like that bid, so we went back out to bid again, and it came in under that by $304,000. So that money is sitting there. Those funds have to be used within the site with the scope of the project, which was asked in the referendum question, which is the new addition and renovating the existing building. So that's going to give us some flexibility to work on some of the other parts of the project. Also, we have $250,000 in abatement costs for hazardous materials that are in the 1924 and 46 sections of the building. After we had it assessed recently, it's going to be under that amount. Myron and Bray guided us in a great direction of saying, hey, earmark plenty of money in case you do find a surprise in the walls and stuff, but we're in good shape in that area. So if you go to there, so we have that funding, but that is definitely for only the existing building and the addition. So then there's some projects we can do to enhance the project originally. And then we also have our Fund 46, and our current budget has money. And then, like you heard the audit report tonight, we do a fund balance. So I have a list here, which came with the committee's work, of 14 items which we can work on. The first one's paving the parking lot. That paving for the project, if you go on the south parking lot where the fence is, the pavement that is included inside the project just goes about 10 feet to the south of it. Doesn't go all the way to Rip Road where it's currently gravel. So that's something we could add in, and the time to do it is when you have the company here that's already going to be doing the pavement around here. Also on our north playground, we have a water flow problem. We've ruined our playground. I don't know if it was laid right originally, but we also every day drive our buses on it multiple times because they make this circle around on it, and it's worn it out and it doesn't drain right. And so now's our opportunity when they knock down the 24 and 46 section. We got the bulldozers here to level that out and pave it the correct way so the water can flow either to the sewage drainage that's out there or into the new retention pond we have. The 1965 north wall of the gym, that we should brick that up at this point while the crew is here. We got the brick. That was an item when we went out to bid on bid day that we said no, we didn't want because we want to make sure we came in under budget. Well, now that the budget of the project is much better, it's an option we should take up at this time because you'll never get it done. You're not going to bring our crew back in here and do the bricking when we got them here now. Now's the time to move on that. Solar panels. I'm working with Elin Electric. They have a solar panel system that comes with a 25-year warranty, and it pays back on the project itself after 20 years, unless we can get a rebate on the solar panels from Solar in Schools, which will help us write that grant. Then that knocks it down by about $10,000 off the price, and then you can also apply for, I can't remember. Oh, it's the one that Rock does with the lighting in the hallways. Energy efficiency, that's not line 38 on the budget report, it's separate. Focus on energy. Yeah, so that would be a rebate that'd come back, so that cost would be less net. Plus what I also like about it is it gives us a little bit of going green, but it also has an educational component, so the science and other teachers can have access to the data for the electricity that's been being generated by adding onto the solar panels. So that's a positive. The district office obviously is going to have to get renovated down there because of the movement we're doing, because the current K-12 office will become the district office, and that wasn't in the scope of the project. The removal of the steps in the 65 hallway, if you go down by the current science wing, that's the half flight of stairs that goes into the gym where that door is half open and little kids walk by. We've been grandfathered in on the safety clause of that because it's 1965 building, but it's a small item and we're going to be having some duct work in that hallway anyways for HVAC. So when they're coming down that hall, they might as well, since we got budget, to remove those steps and make it a safer environment. And we don't need that door on the gym because we have an exit on the north side and on the west side, so you don't need it for fire exit. And then there's some ceiling, lighting, flooring, painting of the 1965 first floor wings. The English classroom's been on our radar for a long time. This is the room right around the corner here that Mrs. Maraska's in. It was originally built as a computer lab, and so there's no place in the classroom where she can stand and have all the kids face her at the same time, because there's an island in the middle, and kids face the middle, and then they face the outside, because that's how the computer room was set up. We don't use it for computers. I don't know when the last time we used it with computers, so they're all facing different ways, and they can't all see the teacher. So we're going to get that renovated and fixed. And then Mrs. LeClaire's room the face room hasn't had a facelift since, I don't know, since Carl was here in '85. So it's long overdue. And since we have the crews coming in with the plumbing and electrical, one thing we do know in that classroom, that tile tested hot for asbestos. So it's best to get it out now while the crew's coming to do some abatement in the 24 and 46 sections, adding on a room to get the abated floor out of there. It's safe now because it's contained, but as soon as something happens, it'd be better to do it when the crew is here and get it out of there before we have a couple tiles break when we do have an issue in the classroom. Where's that, 9, 10? Playgrounds. If on our current playground we redo the pavement, it's going to cause the water flow differently, and we should get some better equipment out there. I want to get that to be more for older kids. It's more geared for the young ones right now. And then with our current building, on the inside of what I'll call the horseshoe of the new building, on the north side of the inside the horseshoe, there's an area about 45 by 95 feet long and wide, 45 feet wide, that make a great 4K through second grade playground. And that would not only help us out for the students having a better playground and splitting them up, but it also help out schedule-wise, because then you could have one group on one playground and one on the other one, so that would help out educationally as well, not only just give them a better facility, but work on that. And then we have our bleachers out on our football field, which have failed inspection 3 times, and the inspector won't give us a bid price on replacing them because they're wood bleachers and you can't replace them. It's inappropriate and illegal, it's not allowable, so we've got to do something with that. And so items 11, 12, 13, 14, bleachers, press box, because they go hand in hand because they're connected. And then you have the track out there, which is in really bad shape. It's awful. That's just the only way for it. And then the football field could use recrowning because there's divots out there as well. And the Booster Club, which I met with Wednesday night, Brooke?
Last night.
Yeah, last night. They're interested in, with their concession stand, of getting running water out there. Currently, our well that we have before the building project runs out to the shed out on the north side. That well is going to get capped off, and we have 2 high-capacity wells in the new building project. We needed 2, one to supply the water for the sprinkler system, and either we could run a line out there or maybe a separate well for it. I don't know yet. The well's about $12,000. I've got to talk to Ray Architect on the 4th of January more about that. But the Booster Club's willing to help financially and support the project, and willing to look for a few donors in that area as well. I did talk to Coach Horvat about the track, because he says he thinks he has some donors that could help out with the track program as well. But you have a list of 14 projects and the total cost. Some are estimates, some are pretty accurate. I've worked with Rock and Dan on some of those. Some I've worked with Bray on getting, and some I've consulted other outside people. For example, like the track, I had 3 companies out there looking at it this fall. 2 declined to give bids. One said they're overworked, one said it's a product they're not interested in. So it's just been interesting how it's been going, but that's the list. And then the revenue sources on the second page, and you can see we have more revenue than expenses listed here. So, but it's time to move forward, and as you heard the auditor tonight, we're sitting financially well. And I know some people are wondering probably, well, why did you pass a referendum for $2 million? Well, if you look at the budget, you'll see we have $3 million in the bank in here as of November 30th. Last month it was 3.8, the month before it was 4.5, and in August it was 5.4 million, so it keeps going down. people are receiving their tax bills right now, and they won't pay their taxes till the end of December, January, then the municipalities will send it to us. So we'll see this dollar amount that we have in reserves decrease for the month of December and then into the first payroll in January, probably. We won't get those in by January 15th, will we?
No.
No. So you're gonna see 45 more days of this decreasing. So we're in good shape. We have to be, because, and it's just, yeah, so that's how that works.
I'll echo what Dave said. Since I've been on the school board, which is 12 years, these projects just keep getting put off because we were trying to figure out what was going to happen. Were we going to remodel? Were we going to build? And now it's time to get them done. And not to correct you, Mr. Woodkey, but just to emphasize, when he talked about Mrs. LeClaire's room, which is the base room, family and consumer education, is not home ec like it was when I went to school. She has a great program, and one of the things they want to do is put in a commercial kitchen there, so she can work with kids. They'll be going into commercial food service. So
okay, but on that, she wants both commercial area and typical kitchen, because most kids use typical kitchens in their house. And we've got to see if it's legal to have a hybrid in one room or not. So we're doing some work on that. Bray's researching that for us. So that's her dream. It might not be able to be allowable by law,
well,
but we're working on it.
It's a great dream.
Well, I told her that now's your time to try and get your program how you want it, because right now the room is holding her back. And like you said, it was no board's or superintendent's fault for not getting these projects done, because you couldn't spend money around here on a project because you might tear it down and then spending good money and then wasting it. And so you can't do that, so we sat. So now we move. So.
Anybody have questions on this, Mr. Woodkey?
I think, I don't have problems with anything particular. I would just say, we're closed in on the main structure now, it's closed in?
No, but, well, I mean, it is for the most part. The skylight's not put in, it's on back order, so that area isn't, but what they did was they built a temporary wall.
They're working on the internal stuff for the...
Well, they're painting in the kindergarten rooms right now, but then there's other places where there's windows not in,
Okay.
so.
So in this building, though, I think you've gone past the point where there's any big surprises coming down. That point was probably passed a couple months ago. From this point on, there's not any, you're not dealing in the unknown anymore. It's more or less frame formed and you're putting stuff inside.
When they dug and they got the footprint built and they got that in there and then they had to put that extra drain in and stuff, yeah, that was the surprise stuff. We shouldn't have it. They're not gonna find anything in the walls
There's usually
now.
not in a construction project or those big projects, there's a point where the architects will say, ooh, you know, and sometimes they'll give you actually diagrams where how you can start spending money with your contingencies. The only one I'm still worried about is when you tear down this old building. There still could be some big expensive surprises in there, so I'd be cautious about that. Once that's done, and as you know, there are no more surprises in there, then I feel pretty comfortable for, you know, go at what you want to do. I do think you need to do, just from some of those projects you rattled off where if the bulldozer's here, we might as well do this, which is, right, a big cost, a lot of that stuff is bringing the bulldozer in, or you know, if they're here doing this, they can just go ahead and do, kind of like, you ran off some stuff.
Right. If the electricians are here and we're putting electricity in the face room,
Yeah.
it's easiest when the crew is here rather than having to come out a second time. Right.
Absolutely.
Same thing with plumbing or anything else associated with that room.
Absolutely.
Or whatever part you want to talk about. Right. Those are the discussions we've had in the owner-architect construction meeting almost every other Monday. Yeah.
But I hate to see us go through a lot of this, and then all of a sudden, you find the old Potawatomi burial site underneath that building. And I'm like, yeah, here we go.
Well, that's why we're going to hang on with. Yeah. We're in great shape. All right. I hope you'll run that, Jerry.
There's no lake here. They settled on the lakes.
Okay, thank you. All right, what's the list?
Oh, Dave, did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to just kind of say kind of a good thing, but related to that is, and this goes back to the feedback, and I think it's good for people to hear this, that as we looked into this whole project and all along here, it was critical that we manage this budget and we come in under budget and we do good on that budget. And what's important is, and I almost a thank you out there to Kyle and all the meetings that the people had, all the staff members and everybody that came in, they made hard practical decisions, many of them to keep us, to get us where we are right now. And I do believe we have been, if I may say, very, what do I say, we were drilling the contractor to be clear with the budget so that we ended up this way. So I do believe some of the assessment that the contracting team is providing to the owners group, so basically Kyle and his team, is that, Jerry, we are approaching that point where the risks are being mitigated and it looks pretty good, but I don't think we gave up everything yet. So that conservative nature in managing this budget has been through all this whole project, in my opinion, and I think they've done great. And I think your caution is that they need to continue doing that. So hopefully that means something to somebody.
Thank you. We will move on then. The Equity Committee met yesterday. Aaron, would you like to start by talking about what we discussed?
Sure. I think one of the biggest pieces is that, you know, the committee itself is taking a look at equity from kind of a broad perspective, that we don't feel that there's necessarily something that is wrong or that needs to be addressed. There's not something driving the committee that way. It's more a matter of kind of the analogy I used the other day was you see the tip of the iceberg, you know that things seem to be going well, you just don't know what's going on underneath the surface, how deep that might be. And so we want to make sure that we get at those things, that we don't get complacent and think that just because we're seeing the stuff above the surface that things are all okay. Maybe there are some areas that we can address or do a better job of. One of the things that we have talked a little bit about is the idea of kind of a flow chart, if you will. You take either the curriculum or you take an activity, you take a lesson somebody's teaching and put it through this matrix and see, are these different areas being addressed and are we doing a good enough job of making sure that it's equitable for all of our students. We wouldn't do that every day on everything, but we might pick some times that different groups would go through those things. So we're in the early stages of a lot of that, so a lot of this is kind of idea discussion, brainstorming. But we've met a couple times now, and as we progress through that, I think we're getting a clearer focus on what that's going to look like. I described before about the iceberg, and I think one of the important pieces to that as well is to get the students' perspective on what's going on. And so we're talking about the possibility of doing a survey of our students just to really get at what it is that they're seeing from their perspective is happening here at school.
Thank you. Cindy or Sue, you want to add anything to that?
Just that the board can anticipate that in January, if we do move forward with this survey idea, we would be looking at, Erin had conversation with school perceptions, and they do have a tool out there that would help guide our work. And so January, we intend to bring something before the board, request permission to proceed with the possible purchase of that survey. Sue?
We also talked about definitions of terms, such as the term equity itself. And what we were going to do in January is look at the equity statements and definitions that other districts in the state have developed. There are a number of them on the WASB website, and we'll be looking at those.
Because it's important to, everybody can kind of have their own definition of equity, inclusiveness. So as the committee moves forward and grows, it would be good to have somewhat of a definition so everybody kind of works on the same page. Keith, would you like to talk about the athletic committee on December 11th?
Yeah, we met on Friday. I guess the main thing we talked about a couple of things, but the main thing was winter sports and how to maybe go forward with that, which I believe we'll be talking about later on under new business.
Okay. Anything?
Yeah,
Probably more at that time.
yeah. I mean, Brooke updated us on other things, but I mean, that kind of dominated the meeting.
Budget report, Mr. Ricky?
Kind of like I highlighted, well, we already had the audit, but kind of highlighted, if you look under Fund 10, we're at 3.0 million. I told you last month it was 3.8, and we dropped to 4.5 the month before. No unusual activities or anything going. We spent $1.9 million, almost $2 million on the construction costs per month. So that's always the highlight right now. That's always the big bill that comes in, off the 11th.
And then on the existing building projects, do you have anything else to
The existing building.
report on those?
Yeah, the existing building, we put a new panel box in for the fire alarm system because 2 months ago it went out. We were turning it off at night per permission by the fire department. And then put the new one in, and was it last week Monday? It was this month. Yeah. We had a fire alarm go off. It turns out that our air handler in the 1924 section, we don't know why, but she set it off. Fire department was on its way, but they called when they were en route, and we, Dan Petrina and Rock Lottenbach were able to check out the area, and it was safe, and the kids were out for quite a while. It wasn't too bad a day, but they were out for longer than a normal fire drill, because it wasn't a fire drill, so that was something that happened, and I'm glad that part of the building's disappearing, so, yeah. Because that's something that, was an air handler, really old, she served her time. So.
Anything else?
It's a big existing building.
Sue, do you have anything timely to report the legislative that wasn't in your report?
Yes, I would like to have us schedule a virtual item for our agenda either in January or February with Representative Kitchens and the Senator Jacques. With the budget coming up, the state budget will be released probably in February. I think we need to let those gentlemen know what our interests are. And so I would like to get those on one of those agenda. And then I can contact them because I want to get on their schedules. I'm sure they're very, very busy too, and will be even more so in the coming year, especially with the budget. The executive director from the Wisconsin Rural Schools Alliance has had a conversation with President-elect Biden's transition team, which I think is a real plus for our state. The purpose of the session was to discuss rural educational issues. Some of the key points that were being pushed by the Rural Schools Alliance is broadband for all, which we've talked about here. Testing flexibility during the pandemic. Melissa, I know that's an interest area of yours. Equitable funding for rural schools and equitable funding for mental health as well as school nurses. So and we are a member of the Rural Schools Alliance, and we will be having a board of directors meeting in January, and there will be more discussion on these items at that time. So I think that's important that we know that our needs are being represented by one of our associations. Also, all board members should have gotten an email from John Ashley this evening. John mentioned something that we talked about here. We talked about mental health resources for students, for staff, and for board members. And John has a link on his email that provides some resources through WASB. So those are some of the things going on. And I also wanted to mention, for those of you not on the Equity Committee, if you are interested in this issue, CISA has a virtual session, which is free. on Friday, January 8th, from 1 to 2 p.m. It is a session with Dr. Capper from UW-Madison School of Education, and she is a renowned expert on equity issues in K-12 schools. So all you have to do is go to the CISA 7 website, and you will be able to register free of charge for that workshop. Friday, January 8th, 1 to 2 p.m. I don't know if it will be recorded, so that may not be an option, but if you can participate in that, I think that would be great. And I think that's all I have.
I would say with Jock and Kitchens, get them the first time you can get both of them together.
Pardon me?
I would say with Jock and Kitchens, get them the first time you get both of them together.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, I think if it's January or February.
Okay.
I have a meeting with Representative Kitchens on the 29th of January.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I will send them both an invitation, and hopefully we can get them. If we can't get them both on the same night, we may have to do them at 2 different meetings, but it'll depend on their schedule.
Just to talk about one of the topics you just raised, which is one of my favorite topics. We really need to do something about Wi-Fi. I mean, we talk about it. The town, that's going to start doing its own thing. It's not going to do anything until the whole county works together. And somehow, can we put pressure? I don't know. Ask the county administrator to come here and defend what's going on with the county. And why the hell aren't you doing anything? You sit there, you're still worried about the height of towers in people's backyard.
Jerry, about a year and a half ago, Tina Van Meer from Gibraltar, Patty Bickman from Southern and I, we all went to a county meeting and pretty much fell in Del Theater. So I don't know, bringing one out here would work, great, but I've been there. And
I know, but
did nothing.
I think you just got to keep hitting them over the head or something. But I mean, that was before the pandemic. The pandemic has really shown the real shortcomings now of Wi-Fi in the rural settings. And if we, I get livid over this, that they don't even want to, the county doesn't want to do anything. They're happy that the towns are trying to do this by themselves, which is never going to work. I mean, you need a countywide, you need a central office, central planner, some central thing driving the force, and they don't want to do it. And I think we need to ask them why, and what are you going to do about it? How long do we have to do this? I mean, even in the city, there's areas of the city that don't have good Wi-Fi for their kids either. So, nothing to our show.
Is there another area in the state another county in the state that's done that?
No, but there's no other county in the state that has regulated Wi-Fi towers like the Door County has. We were, on the committee I was at with Economic Development, one of the members did research, at least in this neck of the woods, he could not find another county that passed regulation on Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is exempted in the state statutes on towers, and the county here decided, oh, we got to do something. I'm certain that's because some people on the county board heard, I don't want to have a tower, I don't want to have a telephone pole in my front yard.
Who are our county board representatives?
Dale Hope was ours, on our side, and I don't know who yours is.
Son's here, what's her name?
Elizabeth Gogger.
Elizabeth Gogger. I don't know who it is for South. Maybe those are the people we need to start to talk to and ask them to bring. I don't think the county administrator's going to do anything. I think we have to talk to the county board.
Yeah. Maybe there's a small group of us who can talk with Dale, instead of coming in lunch. Because he's on our side. I've talked to him before. He's only one person. Actually, which is surprising, that enough of the towns have now bailed out of the county ordinance that with their county board reps have a majority now if they wanted to. But then it takes more than just getting rid of the ordinance. It takes somebody to say, okay, let's now, from the county, we're going to organize and we're going to go forward. I mean, it takes the county really when I was on the committee, I used to say, they should have one FTE, one full-time person, does nothing but with all the federal grants out there. When I was in the hospital world, you go to the Office of Rural Health in Washington, there's gazillions of dollars. All these departments have stuff packed away for rural Wi-Fi. You just needed to have somebody with time and effort to go looking for that stuff. But anyway, I'm done.
Well, maybe we put that on our January agenda.
Okay, can-
What's been done, what can we do? Is it an ad hoc committee or whatever to meet with our county board representatives to start a grassroots effort to do something for people? Because it's awful.
It's maddening.
So we
Well, I
want
think
the
you make a
January.
good
Yeah.
point, Jerry, because all of these organizations, WASB,
Just get discussion.
the World School Alliance, all of them are pushing for more broadband, including the governor, and now's the time
Right.
to strike, because the iron is hot, and if we are ever going to get it, we need to get it now.
So we'll put it on the agenda for January.
Thank you.
For discussion on Wi-Fi, are we inviting anyone in?
No, I think we're going to discuss our tactics then. I think we should point a little group, and then the group plots our strategy, and we go forward.
Yes, like an ad hoc committee, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
When we can discuss if the board wants an ad hoc committee or
Right.
not, but that's the general pattern. We'll move to old business then. We have the second reading of the policies. We had these policies last month, so we could read them, ask questions. We approved them the first time around last month. Our legal opinion now is that we can approve these as a group the second time, so I'll take a motion to approve this group of policies second reading.
Move to approve the policies as listed for a second reading.
Second.
Are there questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our next item is the reopening plan, and Mr. Ricola wants to speak to some aspect of that, so you can come forward and speak.
Is this a
Our
microphone?
time
so that
frame
Dave-
is 3
Dave-
minutes, and the time frame is stated for that to be fair to everybody, so Stephen, is he okay where he's standing?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so my name is Ben Ricola. I'm the head girls basketball coach. My wife and I have been part of this community for 19 years. My wife's a fifth grade teacher here and also a basketball coach. I'm here tonight to advocate for the boys and girls winter sports athletes. As you're aware, we had the mini outbreak a little while ago earlier this month, and the boys and girls basketball teams were put on quarantine. I can report that all of our girls are doing well, and in fact are doing daily workouts with Mrs. Ricola online over the Google meetings after school every day. Tonight, December 17th, was initially going to be our first night back for practice after our 14-day quarantine. However, when school went virtual, things changed. Over the last week or so, we've had to field lots of questions from the parents and the players. Coach, when is practice going to resume? What's the season going to look like? In fact, it happened at tonight's workout. I caught the end of it when I got home, and the question was there again. And all we've been able to say is we'll have to wait and see. And so one girl even mentioned when I said that tonight that, well, I think there's a board meeting tonight. We can tune in and watch it because they're that interested in finding out what's going to happen with their season. What the girls don't know is that the athletic committee has met and discussed what is likely to happen with resuming sports, which includes a January 4th startup date, which is our biggest concern. And so I'm here tonight on behalf of the girls and boys players to ask a favor. And the favor wouldn't cost you anything. The favor wouldn't be anything special. It doesn't require anything except allowing me to use those keys over there and get the girls back in the gym after we followed the WIAA guidelines, we followed the CDC guidelines, we followed the Door County Public Health guidelines of the recommended 14-day quarantine. If we have made the decision to resume winter athletics, I'm not sure anyone in this room can prove that waiting until the 4th would make it any safer than, let's say, starting tomorrow. What we can prove is that waiting until the 4th will cost the Sevastopol Pioneers girls team 18 extra days, boys team about 13 or 14, and that might not seem like much, but that's about 33% of the time that we have left in this season. There's no spring season, alternative season for boys or girls basketball. This is it. Okay, so unlike volleyball and football where they get to have a second chance, there's not that for basketball. If we wait until the 4th, the girls will have been without practice for over a month, and the boys nearly that. Waiting until the 4th will obviously hurt our players' conditioning and development and ability to gel as a team, not to mention missing several games that won't be made up.
About 15 seconds, Pen.
Okay. For the WIAA to allow us to compete again, we need 5 practices. Statistically, right now, those practices could be safer than potentially starting on January 4th. Other teams in our area have also gone through this. We're not the only school dealing with this. At my school, dealing with it, and they've done the 14 days and let their kids back into competition. We are the only school in Door County that, in Packerland play, that hasn't played a conference game. And there are virtual schools that are also still competing. And so I do have a few more points, but I know my time is up, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions if there's going to be discussion on that. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Rickle right now? Mr. Kaczmarski, do you have any questions for Mr. Ricola?
No, I have no additional questions. I appreciate his work.
Then we'll move into the reopening plan discussion and how you want to leave that.
Sure, we have the letter in your packet, which I sent out to the parents last week, saying that we're switching to remote learning because of lack of staff and the number of cases of COVID we have within our student body. My goal would be that we, on January 4th, can have in-person instruction like we had it before we shut down like this and went to remote only. We had that AB model, but we switched it to kind of like Model 4 with the high school switching. We as an administrative team think that's our best approach to educating our kids around here. We want them in person. The remote's working. It just doesn't work as well as in person, and the blended seems to pick up a little bit. Mr. Bear in second semester, which is what, January 19th? Or?
Correct, yeah, January 19th.
Okay, he'd like to adjust the middle school. You want to talk a little bit about that at this time?
Absolutely, yeah,
Sure.
thank you very much. I worked very hard with the middle school staff over the last month and a half to find a solution for them, and our original proposal would have been to go to Model 4, very similar to what our high school is doing, but there is a big difference between our 6th grade learners and our seniors, so we really had to study that, look at that, and make sure we're doing the right thing by all of those students. So we took the time to do that. Our staff took an extensive 5-page survey just to really look at all of our students' needs, and one of the things that stood out the most is how are our students doing virtually currently? And we have a pretty good sample because we've had a number of kids that have chosen virtual learning as their only model. We've had a lot of students quarantine, and so we've had an opportunity to kind of study that. One of the things that we can see with middle school learners is that their achievement is much below what we would hope for if they're in that virtual environment. So we know that our middle school students are not managing virtual learning nearly as well as our high school students are managing it. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. Self-directed student learning is very difficult when you're 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old. And sometimes you're at an age where your parents trust you to be home alone. But you not only have to be home alone, you have to manage your own learning. And that's very difficult for an 11, 12, 13-year-old student. The other one is management of technology. We see that increase, and my survey shows that my 8th graders are probably ready. My 7th graders are moderately ready. My 6th graders are not ready to manage the technology, the instructional technology on their own independently. The third thing that we looked at is ability to maintain pace, and that really is, again, comes back to self-direction, but are our virtual learners moving at the same pace as our classroom instruction or that in-person learning that's happening, and that is not the case. So that was really important for us to look at. So what we learned from this is that we can't require all of our middle school students to be virtual attendees, because they will fall behind and it'll actually be detrimental to any learning model that we have. Okay, so we really looked at that. We didn't want to put students in a position where they were achieving lower than their ability, and we felt like that would be the case if we moved to the Model 4. However, we sat as a staff and we said it really is our goal to have more time with our kids. Time is essential. The next question is how do we achieve that? By maintaining social distancing. So we studied many approaches, and we came up with something that's unique to Sevastopol only. We haven't seen it anywhere else, but I think it's going to work. So the plan is to have our students learn 3 days a week versus the 2 that they're in school right now. I know it's not 4 days, but it's 3, and I think that moves us much further ahead. So in this model, our students would attend in person on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, that they're already required to do so. So those are their 2 days. Then Wednesday, we would have 100% attendance. So all of our middle school students would attend on Wednesday. However, what we're going to do is only we're going to bring in students that are able to, or that maybe have internet access, or don't have the ability to access internet, or they have individual circumstances that will require them to be in person. And then we do have a population that we've identified that we think can maintain pace from home. So we're splitting our school in half and saying, okay, try this, see how it goes. And then we've already identified, but it's 1 day a week versus the 2 days a week that we have for high school. So I think it's a good solution. Now the thing that gives me great confidence is part of our survey said, how are we doing at covering our essential content right now? And 90% of our staff feel like we are covering the essential standards that we have to cover right now in the current mode. They think this would improve that opportunity further. So I think we did a great job in looking at this, looking at our individual students' needs. And so for that reason, I would recommend that I would hope that you would support our plan to implement a 3-day learning instruction as of January 19th.
For the middle school.
For the middle school, yeah, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Any questions? I know it's a lot of information.
So what do we do with the 8, 1, 2, 3, and 4? If 5, 6, 7, and 8 have problems, then I would think you've got more problems in the lower grade yet.
There's no virtual component for the lower grade.
Oh, there's,
Right. If they'd be on the AV schedules, everyone's still on the AV schedule for being in class. What Mr. Bear is looking for is the middle school on their non-in-person attendance day on Wednesday to log in remotely and
I
join.
apologize. I thought everybody until further notice is virtual.
Everyone is currently.
Till
But then
January.
we come back in January, we're hoping to go back to the AV model where half are here and half are at home. But what we're looking for is in the middle, and the high school level, they're logging in on the 2 days they're not here. And then on Wednesdays, we want to add the middle school, that wouldn't be in person. He wants to do that semester time. So that's the direction we want to go.
Sorry, Jerry.
This is Dave, I have one question.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just curious, I'm a little bit, I don't understand all the objectives and stuff, but what was the process? How do you evaluate the essential content against the school, all the curriculum in the school? I'm just kind of curious, is that something you can talk to briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. What we're doing is we're taking a look at the standards and the point at which we would be in most academic years. Also, the state of Wisconsin has identified essential standards for English and math. And so it's not all of the standards necessarily, but it's those things that are grade level appropriate and required for grade advancement. So we've gone through those with the staff members, and they have, with their professional opinion, been able to tell me whether or not they're covering those. So Dave, we had 90% of the staff feel like in the current AV model, hybrid model, that they are able to cover their standards. But this would give us additional time to cover them further and maybe cover some of those that we are not able to cover in this mode. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I guess the big thing, my big concern, because what we're about is education. At the end of this year, come May, I don't feel like an 8th grader in May 2021 is going to be at the same level as an 8th grader in May 2020. In no way by like what an 8th grader was in 2019. So where is that gap? Where do we ever fill that gap up? I mean, we can't, there are certain, you expect certain things of a senior in high school, but even these seniors aren't going to be like the seniors of last year or anywhere near the seniors.
No, it's different.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, but-
And earlier you were talking about reading to your child. My biggest concern is kids reading at grade level at 3rd grade. Because if you don't get that, you get one shot to get to 8, 9 years old and be able to read at your grade level. And if you're behind in 3rd grade, you're going to be behind for the next 9 years. That's a fact. That's just the way it is.
And there's no doubt, you're right, Jerry, across the board, that's going to be a national.
Are they just going to have asterisks after their names as they go through life? Oh, you're a class of 2020, so
Yeah.
you're not going to know how to do this on this machine. You know?
No, I hope not, and that's where we really had to take a look at our curriculum and say, what are the things that they absolutely have to leave this grade with?
Reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yep, and so we've had to really allocate. Now, keep in mind, this plan is not perfect, and I will not bring you a perfect solution, because there really isn't one in this pandemic. I wish there was. But this is an improvement on what we're currently doing. And I hope the board recognizes
30% or
that.
something.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, last month I brought you something for high school, or maybe it was a month and a half ago. Now I'm bringing you something for middle school. We're trying to keep improving and giving our teachers and students more time with our curriculum. That's the best we can do. I mean,
and I feel for, but I just know I can feel the tension when I talk to some people in the community. The pressures on the family on the other side are just enormous, especially if you're, am I gonna not go to work because I gotta stay home with my kid today? And who's gonna, there's financial issues, and the numbers are just skyrocketing across the country of alcoholism and abuse in the homes and all that stuff. And I just want to see what the plan is, where we're going. At what level does COVID have to be to get things back to normal? Or is that possible? I mean, most of the experts say probably around June or July we're going to see the curve because of the herd immunity. But before that, because we focus ourselves, public health is focusing itself totally on one thing, and that's health. But public health involves not just the clinical medicine part, it includes spiritual, mental, family, the whole shooting match, all comprised. Public health involves the whole person. And they right now are focusing just on that one aspect of it. And the rest of the aspect of public health is going to hell. And I really believe that. And the key to that friction in that society is the whole issue with the schools and the kids. It's totally disruptive. And I don't know, the sooner we can get back to 5 days a week, the better off. So if you want to go to 3 instead of 2 in class, because I haven't read a single study yet, I'm a news junkie, so I listen to this stuff all the time and read on the internet. There's not a single study that says, wow, virtual learning in high school and grade school and kindergarten is the best thing we've ever done. It has its place, I think, on the university level, because you're there for a certain purpose, and you got some investment in it and all that. But down there, and I don't know, I probably said too much, but I really feel like, God, whenever we can plan ourselves to get things as fast back to normal, the better off.
I think that's what everybody in this building wants.
Yeah, we would all like normal.
But Southern Door, not to get
Go ahead.
this, Southern Door has been full blown the whole time, right?
Right, and then
Surrey
they
Bay's in full blown right now.
but then they sent home grade levels at a time.
Well, I know, I can
Yeah,
attest to that.
So it goes back and forth, right. So we could go back to full everyone in, but then we'll be sending kids home like we did when we had sent 19, 13, 12 at a time, and they're not here for 2 weeks, and then you have to blend it again. So we think what we're doing is the best, but if you want to go a different direction, fine.
No, I'm not gonna, you're the expert, I'm not gonna second guess what you guys are doing. I mean, you're good, you guys are, I don't have to sit in your seats, thank God.
Well, we sat down this afternoon, and it's 12:30 today, and had another discussion about,
Yeah,
okay, how's this
I
working?
guess I'm just saying, the sooner we can get back to some semblance of normal, and getting to about 3 days is more normal than being in 2 days, so. Maybe by April or each year it'll be 4 days.
Well,
Hey, Steve, I have a comment if I may.
Please, go ahead.
So, great point, Jerry, and I, for what it's worth, I just wanted to share this. I always tell people in this situation that education is a continuum, all of our lives, right? So you're continuing learning stuff, and it changes at different rates. So I tell my kids and anyone who will listen that they'll overcome this and they'll reach their potential in their life regardless of this year. And as far as the schools go, I think I would say that our staff and everyone in this country is kind of reeling for survival and how do we get through this? But the real point that Jerry's and I agree with is, at some point, somebody in the education ballgame, and I don't know who that is, and maybe an education source or higher, or the DPI, what are the learning objectives for future years? Are they going to change them? How do we adjust that gap? Or are we just going to fall back into the old thing and hope the kids figure it out? And that's what I don't know the answer. And I'm just glad we're talking about it. But I mean, like, so I don't know if we bring it up to the school board convention or WASD. Where are the smart thinkers thinking about this? Sorry, comment?
Thank you. So that's the plan for middle school. Any questions on that?
Adam, I had a question regarding, when we went to the AB, we looked at Wednesday as kind of the special day to spend time with the children that were falling behind, or those that didn't have easy access to the internet could come in. Now that with this model of bringing them in on Wednesday, is there still going to be that element of that one-to-one or that kind of extra assistance that the children are going to need?
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. That Wednesday is essential for our high school model because kids are required to attend virtually. That's where kids are falling behind because of that virtual component. Because we won't be requiring kids to attend virtually in the middle school, then we're hoping that we don't have that gap. But in addition to that, we already have an intervention and enrichment block built in every single day at our middle school. So the needs are different again than our high school. So that's why I appreciate Mr. Lidkey allowing us to look at this differently. Our middle school is different than our high school, and we needed to make a different accommodation for them. So at the high school, that Wednesday is essential because we have all of our kids, 100% of our kids in that virtual world 2 days a week. At the middle school, we're going to have some of our kids in that virtual environment on Wednesday, only when they show us that they can handle it, but otherwise, their only learning mode is going to be in person. So it's much more in-person content. Plus, we already have the intervention built into middle school. So we've accounted for both of those things.
Go ahead.
Do you have a mechanism, though, let's say Johnny Jones is in the 3-day week, okay? But you can see that he's falling behind, and he's not doing well at all. Are you able to say to Johnny, you got to come in 5 days a week?
Yes.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do that.
We have
Do
some
that?
special
We do that now.
education students
We
that
do
are.
that for special
Yeah.
education students, we do that for at-risk students, we do that, we look at students on an individual basis. And if that's what they need, we.
I mean,
go
Johnny
through a
may not be any
matrix.
of those, he just doesn't do well at home, and there's nobody home to watch him, and over, okay.
We just
work
have to be
with the-
careful we don't get over the maximum of our capacity for staying 6 feet apart, but we,
Absolutely.
yeah. Because I know we have a whole bunch of parents say, yeah, I'll take mine 5 days a week, he needs it. Well, he needs it, unfortunately, there's some that need it worse than yours, yeah. So that's why we're using
Well, it has
the,
to be your decision, not the parents' decision.
right, because they're using the 504 and the IEP mode and the DF list.
You can all write books about this, but.
So what's next on the reopening?
The other part about reopening is student travel. We don't have anything on restricting student travel, and we're aware of a few families that are traveling internationally. I contacted the Door County Public Health. They said, yeah, if someone travels, they should quarantine when they come back, but we're not requiring it. We're recommending it, but we're not enforcing it. So if you want to make a policy on it, go ahead, but we're not touching that. So I talked to Mary Gerbig, and she said, well, where do you draw the line? I said, well, we do have something going international. I said, so I kind of would like to draw the line there. And I know going to Green Bay could be just as hot as going to, I don't know, pick another place, I don't care. But I thought we could maybe draw a line at least internationally. Because we do have families that are traveling, saying that when they do travel abroad, they gotta come back, they gotta sit out 14 days, so we have some sort of quarantine. But we won't get any help from public health on that. That's gonna have to be our decision or not. But right now, we're sitting at not, we have nothing.
So your recommendation under the plan is quarantine 14 days after international?
Yeah, if you leave the continental 48.
discussion on that?
Those who are traveling that you know of would be notified of that ahead of time?
If we know them, yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna be our real difficult part with the, the staff we can have required that they have to, families do what families do, right? I mean, yeah.
But if we know.
If we know, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know about that because on some
Yeah, go ahead.
places now, the airlines, you've got to be tested when you get on, going and coming, and so you're probably safer with them than you are with somebody who just went down to Milwaukee for the weekend to see grandma.
That's
I
why,
mean, that was a big issue in the beginning, but now, I don't understand, like, it's all over the place. I mean, in the old days, in the beginning, there's only, had been 14 cases in Wisconsin, and you went to the state of Washington where they were at already the second 2,000 case. You quarantine them coming back, but I don't know.
well, I'll just tell you, the concern is, a few of our staff members have heard from their families of the students they have, say, hey, we're going to this country or that country, and the staff are very nervous when they come back. They're just gonna walk right in because unless it was recommended by the county to do it, which is a recommendation, so they aren't required, so they won't do it if they don't want to. And we've had families that have traveled out of state right from the beginning of the year. Some said, no, we're coming right in, and others that said, okay, we'll sit out 14 days. So leaving it up to the hands of the family, that's what we'll get. And we have some nervous staff members about as soon as they travel internationally and coming back.
I just think, I mean, I guess the term international makes fear in people's brains in some respects. They're probably going to someplace safer than it is here. So, I don't see the medical rationale for that. I did at the beginning when there was not that much going on and there was a whole bunch going on there. Just because, I mean, there's parts of the United States you can go travel to and it's worse than international.
I think this is probably why York County Public Health hasn't taken a hard line on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, I'd ask the health
Can you hear
department.
me? This is Dave.
You go ahead.
Yeah, Dave?
Pardon me,
Well,
Dave?
can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I would kind of add, I agree kind of with Jerry, is I'm struggling to find the value in that. I mean, we already have policies about people evaluating themselves. We are always questioning kids, our staff, to take care of themselves. And I would just point out that, we should be proud of our community. They're pretty reasonably doing well, and not limit their travel at this point in this pandemic.
I guess you gotta do something to make everybody feel good. You go international travel, you come back, you gotta have a COVID test and give you the results before they come back to school. Would that make everybody feel happy? You come back from Uganda and they get a COVID test, they get out of school a day, they get a COVID test is negative.
That's okay, but the negative test, if you're out on quarantine due to close proximity to someone and you get a negative test, you still can't come back for those 14 days.
But you're not quarantined because you've been contacted.
Right, we're saying about international travel,
Yeah.
correct? Right, so you could be asymptomatic or it
That's
hasn't
true,
developed
that's
in you.
true. I mean,
That's fine, if you don't, that's okay, but I'm just telling you, we do have staff that have this concern knowing that their students are traveling internationally.
So this
That
comes,
is not how our staff feels, some will.
I don't know, the only thing that I've not heard that personally, but the only thing that comes to mind is, I don't know if some of our families are traveling, to their extended family, maybe in Mexico. We have a lot of families that do leave, and I don't know how I feel about, separating families more. I don't know.
Well, we're not separating, we're just saying when you come back, you're quarantined for 14 days.
so what's the difference between going to Mexico and going to Laredo, Texas?
I don't have the answer to it. It's just
There isn't.
something that,
Well, on the CDC website, I'll show you that Mexico right now is extremely hot.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Laredo, Texas, I'd have to look it up, I guess.
And your point, Jerry, the only difference is a river.
That's right, that's right, that's what I'm trying to say, the only difference is a river.
So we're gonna have to approve this plan, so I'm gonna set this thing aside, and when we get to making a motion to approve the plan, if we wanna remove that, we'll have a separate motion to remove or adjust that item. We'll move on with the rest of the plan.
Okay, the rest of the plan is reopening the resuming athletics. I have a list of 12 items here. One would be only high school athletics would resume. The reasoning behind that is the high schoolers are better at the remote learning than the middle schoolers, and so that's protecting their education. It also allows us to utilize the gym space for both gyms for the teams. The basketball teams are divided into 2 groups, junior high and varsity, and there'd be no overlap of numbers between the 2 teams. That way, in case we do have to go in quarantine, they're in smaller groups. The only time they'd have to be together is on a bus ride to an away game, and we'd have one team sit in the front of the bus, one sit in the back, and have a gap. Have both teams practice independent of each other, so there's no mixing, and practice times reduced to 90 minutes, maximum length. That gives the gym time some flexibility there and less physical stress when they're actually practicing, plus they can clear one group out and get another group in. Coaches will only attend 1 practice on any given day. This also keeps them in one of the 2 groups and allows us to, not lose everybody at one time. The games currently scheduled, the schedule we're trying to accomplish. Games may be lost to COVID and not rescheduled. It's just going to get impossible for Brooke to schedule all the games all the time. You just can't get them all in. If we do have cancellations due to inclement weather, we would try and reschedule those like a normal year because we do have snow days. Typically. And if one team is quarantined, whether it be the JV or varsity, the other team still could practice or play their games because they were separate and intermixed. The recommendation is practice may resume on Monday, January 4th. That allow families to celebrate their Christmas times together, and hopefully everyone come back healthy because we do want our whole staff back here. And then games would start on the 9th because the WI requires 5 practices. And the quarantine period for individuals with close proximity remains at 14 days, which is not what the WI is going with. They switched to 7 to 10, and then they switched back to 14. Oh, that should also be part of the reopening plan for, well, maybe that's down later, under new business, the CDC guidelines. So, and we'd have no fans at the games, just to limit the amount of exposure. And we got some people that don't want athletics to pick back up. I heard of them right away when we went to remote learning, but I think we do need to have the kids have some opportunities here too. So, and if you want to tweak any of those or change them, that's fine by me.
I just go with the number 11. If the CDC says 10 days, then why don't we do 10 days?
Door County Public Health and Door County Medical Center are requesting us to stay at 14.
WIA is also.
And the WI requires 14 for athletics, so we don't have a choice on that.
Yeah.
See, the question's not, okay, I don't get it. The question's not raised with the health department is those numbers are based on a general public population. There's a whole different set of numbers if you look at numbers from 15 years and under, because it's a totally different population group, and I suspect those percentages narrow. So it says it's another, it's a 1%, if you go to 10 instead of 14, there's a 1% chance, right?
1 to 10%.
1 to 10, but that's in the general population, so if you go to a pediatric population, those numbers are gonna skew even lower. Because but anyway, I don't
Well, that'll be new business items A, right.
I'm not gonna ask you to go against the health department, that's what they're saying, who am I just paid the bills at the hospital.
Even despite the health department and the hospital, I think you said WIAA, if you were a member
Yeah,
of
the athletics has to be 14 days.
They went to 7, now they're back to
They went to 7 to 10, WI went 7 to 10, they went back to 14, but when I typed it out there, it's 7 to 10.
My only recommendation to kids and everybody is if you're gonna get close contact, you get it. You get back to work much faster than you did get it.
Now, the only thing, Coach Rickla wanted practice to start before January 4th. That's the only thing that's different on my plan than what I got. So you want some discussion on that?
If I thank you for commenting. Because first, I was in the athletics committee, and generally I agree with the recommendations because they're reducing our liability. One thing I think is important to say that there is no data saying that youth sports is causing more COVID spread or anything like that. So that's just, I wanted to share that. And I do think an important thing to consider is we have offered alternative seasons to other sports teams. And both teams have done the quarantining, and we reduced our risk by going to remote. So if we're following all these strict rules, I would just ask you guys to see, could the two basketball teams invoking all the right hand washing policies and stuff like that, and maybe even bringing in parents to help do that even better, because they would get that. I personally would recommend we allow the basketball team to start practicing just the high school, so that they could get their 5 days of practice in before January 4th is something I would offer to someone to think about.
So Dave, would you start practicing before Christmas or after Christmas? On my Friday flyer last week, I put down I wouldn't do anything until the 25th of December. Because I wanted to make sure we had everyone get healthy to their families with Christmas. I think family is more important than athletics. But are you saying start practice tomorrow? Are you saying probably start practicing the 26th or saying on January 4th?
So
I'm throwing you on the spot.
what I don't necessarily understand is the WIA rules and what consists of a practice and how we're going to have those practices, right? So I think the challenge I would throw out there is let's find a creative way within all the rules to have 5 practices before January 4th. And if that's on a Saturday and a Sunday, if the teams want to go, because remember, any player and any family doesn't have to support some of this, you know, if you gotta, so, and I would hope they wouldn't practice on Christmas and stuff like that. But that's all I'm asking this group to consider, and I will support the final outcome, but I think, you know, Sevastopol did very well, in my opinion, to navigate this challenge for our kids. And we know the mental health has been briefed on that. And so I just think it's worth a hard discussion here today to see what we do. And so it's, how do we figure out 5 practices somewhere, maybe in our gyms, but nobody else will be there because we're all in remote. So it's just them going into the facilities, and they'll probably have access to keys if we give us that. So I don't know the answer to your question, Kyle.
Well, the Christmas is on the 25th, which is a Friday. If you start practicing after the 25th, you could get 5 practices in before the 4th of January.
What is the game schedule for boys and girls? I mean, when's their first game in January?
I don't know.
Brooke, do you know when the first games are scheduled after the holiday break?
The girls' basketball team originally had games on December 28th, December 29th, January 2nd.
2nd or 7th?
2nd.
2nd?
What about like when they come back on the 4th?
When they come back from the 4th, there would have been a game on the 4th. There's a game I know on Saturday the 9th.
The 9th they could play if they started practice on the 4th. What about the
There was
boys?
one on January 5th for the boys. There was one on January 2nd, January 4th, January 8th for girls.
So they have 5 practices in before they can play.
Yeah, WI says they have to have 5 practices and you can only have 1 practice in a day.
So why can't they have a couple practices next week?
They could if you want that.
Because if you jam them all right after Christmas, then that's going to put more pressure on the families because they're trying to, oh, they're probably not supposed to, but they're going to all get together to see grandma. And then that's going to put undue practice. So give them some lead time, do a couple of practices. Maybe you have a practice
Okay.
this weekend.
But now, Jerry, you're saying have a couple practices next week and then get your 5 in before the 4th, right?
With 3
That's
in
not
next
what the
week.
coaches are going to do, though. The coaches are going to have as many practices as they can between them. They'll have a couple next week, and then they'll have a whole slew. If you're saying limited to 5 practices
No,
only between...
I'm just saying
Yeah.
start, don't wait till after Christmas has started. Do it as soon as you can. Start getting your 5. But I'm not understanding you're saying that they have to have 5 practices in
Correct.
before they get their ticket, right?
Yep.
So start as soon as possible getting practices.
I think what Mr. Ricola is looking for is not just 5 practices. The boys and girls, I'll say, are not just looking for 5 practices. They're looking to have as many practices as they can before those January games. Is that correct?
Well, you want to get his games in
Well,
December then
it's
as
all
well.
about resuming the season. If we wait until the 4th, the girls will effectively have about a 32-day quarantine. If if we start tomorrow, they'll have had a 15-day quarantine. Statistically, I would think tomorrow would be the safest time at practice. We've all been in
Yeah, as soon as the
quarantine.
clock strikes midnight on the quarantine day, then, well,
Yeah, and technically, we
So
could
they're not just
play
looking for
anytime
5
after we have the 5.
And then there'll be
practices.
games as well.
Games and practices.
so the real question is, do we want them to be able to be qualified to start regular play after the first of the year? That's the
Or
real question.
January, or December
Well,
28th.
if they start practicing next week, they'll get games in before New Year's.
So what would you like?
We already
The
said we-
the girls are hungry. They're asking every day, when are we
So
going?
how would you word our, whatever we're supposed to do?
Well,
Hey, this is Dave.
then you'll end up, you gotta remember the people that don't want athletics opened up at all.
Well,
We're gonna interrupt and let Mr. Kaczmarski talk for a second.
Sorry,
2 seconds.
I also wanted to ask Ben, okay, I might know this both because my daughter played, but a portion of his team have had COVID, are now recovered, and are immune according to public health. So, I mean, for his team, that also reduces the risk and liability to that basketball team, because I think it's 7, am I wrong, Coach?
I think we had eight out of our 17 have already had it.
Yeah, it is another consideration for this discussion.
well, let me
But we're not differentiating between girls and boys, right? Is this, I mean, we're not.
I spoke with Ron before coming here. I could say what Ron said.
We're talking winter sports, not girls basketball, right?
We're talking boys and girls basketball right now.
Just so I'm clear.
As people get this
One decision on
COVID,
girls
it
and
starts
non-
changing things.
No, boys and girls should be exactly the same. And then we do have 1 swimmer who's on the Sturgeon Bay team and 3 wrestlers with the Sturgeon Bay. And this proposal here has only opening up the high school athletics, not resuming middle school. So we wouldn't have middle school girls, we wouldn't have middle school wrestling, which we do have boys and girls that wrestle. We're trying to litigate that because the high schoolers do a better job of remote learning than the middle schoolers, and it alleviates gym time space.
Okay, so we don't get into the weeds on this. I think the question before us is, do we want to reopen sports? And a yes would be a yes, and it's between you and the experts to put your schedule together. You know, we shouldn't get involved in saying you can practice on Tuesday and Wednesday and not on Friday. We're just gonna say, go for sports. If we
This
are-
is my recommendation here. If you want to move that January 4th, you guys can do that.
Why, okay, then now, that's your recommendation, so why did you pick January 4th instead of?
Because I thought we could get through the holiday season and get back to educating the kids in the spring of January, because we have had we lost 6 staff members to basketball.
I think that day also correlated with resuming of school.
That's when we come back to school as well. The first is on a Friday.
So I think that my feeling is you can resume sports. It's between you and the coaching staff to work it out when you want to resume it. That shouldn't be a board decision. We're getting into the weeds on that one. We're just saying, we support you in starting back to sports,
I agree.
right?
I
If
agree.
you want to do it on the 3rd or the 14th of April, I don't care. It's between you all to work it out. It's your decision, and then if they disagree, you can.
All right, I'll figure it out tonight,
All right.
after the meeting.
So I think, so do we need a motion on this, or no?
Well, this is part of the reopening plan. Did you have something to say, Keith?
No, I was just gonna say, I think with, like, even our reopening plan, I think we gave the permission, whose turn to the administrators to act in the best interest for our students academically,
Right.
primarily athletics, I think are a great thing for the health and mind-being. If the administrative team made a decision on our learning plan, and that wiggles based off of the needs of shortness of staff. And so if, you know, I fully support what our administrators have done, and both academically making the decision to suspend sports, whatever they've done, I think they've handled in a very appropriate way. So I guess I would agree with you in the sense that I don't know if that's our decision to I support Kyle and Adam, Aaron, and Mrs. Margaret, so.
Okay,
So this is
I've got
so-
enough direction then.
So
I'm
what
good.
we're doing is they're making a recommendation, we're throwing it back at them and saying.
That's okay, I got it.
And saying, you work with the coaches and figure it out.
I'm gonna sleep on it tonight and come up with a decision by morning. That's what I'm gonna do.
But again,
I'm fine with that.
I mean, whatever that decision is, I fully support. I mean, that's why.
Yeah.
And I
That's why we
understand,
have a great administrative team, is to make these hard decisions, whether it's, you know, suspending school until the 4th of January. I mean, and that maybe we had to do because we don't have enough teachers to do that. I mean,
And we have to stay out of micromanagement.
All right, well, my plan was to after this meeting to have all the coaches sit down and have a meeting with them. Probably Monday, I'm guessing.
and
and-
we know that there are benefits to kids participating in these activities. But we also direct our administrative team to do
what's
the
best.
best they can to keep education going. So I guess we're leaving it to you.
I mean,
Okay.
foremost, I mean, it's the education piece. I mean, I'm an athletic supporter. I think it's great. But whatever is best for the kids, I leave that up to.
So the teams want to get back on the court, but we also want the administrative team to consider what's best educationally. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
That's my feeling.
If there's no roadmap for this, there's no technical road. You're a pioneer, really.
Did you want
Literally.
to do something with the international travel piece? Or are we good with that?
I personally have a problem with that, but I would amend that by saying, then if you're international travel, then you have to have a COVID test before you come back to class.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Okay.
Is there a second for that motion? Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Second,
Okay, for discussion?
Dave Keck, second it.
Discussion?
Can, Carl, can you restate that, please?
No, because I gotta figure out what it is myself.
Okay.
I always say if a student and their family is engaged in international travel at any time, before the student can come back into class, they has to test negative for the COVID test.
Okay.
And give the,
Are you okay if a student doesn't get the negative test but sits out 14 days? Because we've had some families who have
that's fine,
refused
they
to
don't
get
want to, they'd
tested.
rather sit out 14 days and.
But we've had some families who've refused to get tested.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Well, I mean, we've seen a lot this fall.
Jeez. Well,
One question, do we know if public health allowing people to get tests without symptoms now? I know in the past, if you didn't have symptoms, you couldn't get a test. Does someone know if that's changed?
I think if you called up the COVID or the hospital and said, can I get in tomorrow? The school won't let me back into class until I get a COVID test. I just came back from Mauritania or anywhere, New Zealand. Or you wouldn't get into New Zealand. They would let you come in. Maybe we need to check that out.
Our school nurse would make a phone call.
Yeah. Hell, they do the pro football players every other day, so.
Carl, do you have the motion?
Yes, I do. Motion by Mr. Warwick with a second by Mrs. Elner Ehlers to require a negative COVID test or quarantine 14 days in order to return to school if traveling outside continental 48 states.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The last thing I'll say on that is when athletics do resume, I really want to see everybody have a mask that fits, because those kids wear masks that don't fit and they're falling down constantly. So they need to have masks that are adjustable so they can tighten them and make them fit properly. And they need to keep their mask on when they're in the huddle. Coaches and kids need to keep their mask on when they're in the huddle. And I just want to see a better job of that.
I didn't realize, I was watching the sports the other night, Wisconsin high school basketball, they play basketball with their masks on. That's like climbing up the top of, you're really cutting down your oxygen intake, so it's really like climbing Mount Everest.
Jerry, they were
I don't know how they do it, but if they've got to wear the mask, they've got to have a mask
I
that
talked
fits
to a
and
kid,
can't go
who
down
played
like this.
basketball in Stokes, and he said, It's really hard that he practices at home by running up and down the stairs with a mask on.
Jerry, they were playing football with masks on too.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
When you start.
Is there anything else you need on the reopening plan?
No.
Do we need the board's support for the middle school model, or do I assume that I understand?
We're going with it, yeah.
You are, okay, thank you.
Yes,
Then we have the COVID-19 appendix to the employee handbook. Someone want to make a motion one way or the other on that?
Well,
I would move to approve the,
well, hang on. You're talking about the staff? Here's what you need to know. The part about the 80 hours of COVID time, like given by the federal law, expires December 31st. So with it expiring December 31st, the federal government hasn't extended that. We've had various staff members who've obviously had to use that part or all of that 80 hours. So now, after December 31st, January 1st, federal government's not going to do anything between now and then. So after the first of the year, if we don't take action tonight to change it, it's going to come out of their regular sick time. And some of them are going to get wiped out on this because we've had staff members who've been out on COVID because of close proximity or testing or whatever 3, 4 times, and it's going to wipe out their days. So my recommendation in this area, and I just checked with Mary Gerber today because we were waiting for the federal government to do something on this to extend it out, but they're not going to. They're working on stimulus money right now and they're staying open longer, but they are not addressing this at all. I would like to extend the 80 hours to the end of the school year for our staff, but not increase the 80 hours. So if they've used some already, that's 2 weeks. So you'll ever have 2 weeks all the way through June 30th, is what I'd like you to do.
so when you say a federal, does the federal government subsidize that, or is that just a rule that you have to pay them, or, I mean, what's the?
The only thing,
We don't have to pay FICA on it.
okay,
It's the only break.
there is no subsidy for you paying those people for the 80 hours. The only difference is, and up until the 31st of December, is we do not have to pay our portion of Social Security tax, the 6.2%, which overall is probably saving us maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000 by the time we're done. That's the only thing we don't have to pay. The member still has to pay their portion, and we still have to pay both sides, and both sides still have to be paid of the Medicare. As far as reimbursing us for us paying their wages for those days, there is no reimbursement. Going forward, if we extend these COVID days into the new year, we don't get that break on the Social Security tax. That only goes until the 31st.
But that's minimal.
Right, it's minimal,
It's minimal,
yeah,
right.
it's minimal.
But
But
we're
no, we
gonna
do
have-
not get reimbursed for paying their wages for those days.
Right. I was just wanting to be clear on, you said both, federal, I mean, that's probably like FMLA or something that you have to do, but you may not get paid.
Well, these days, COVID days came into the CARES Act,
Right.
which when that was passed, became federal law, which ends the 31st, where those COVID days come in. What we want to do is extend those COVID days for the rest of, if you haven't used them up till the end of the school year. Now, I've got about 4 staff now that have already used up all 10 days.
Okay. I'm all, I mean,
So I'm confused now. Does this new appendix include that, or do we?
No, this is what we had in there. I was waiting to see if that go out. It didn't by the time the board packet came out. It still hasn't come out. So I would like it to be, this is already going to approve what's in here. It's a current. What I'd like to do is extend those 80 hours out to the rest. The other part that's in here is the travel. And same thing with you on staff travel international or not. You can put that in there or not, but I'm telling you, every time I've checked with Department of Health for travel on the first page there, they said the same thing. We'll recommend, but we're not requiring them to do anything. So. And I would hope our staff wasn't traveling internationally, but I can't guarantee anything like that.
Mr. Lickey, do you want to take it to the end of the school year, or do you want to take it to June 30th for the staff who are work passive.
June 30th,
June 30th.
because, well, and that's also going to get us in the vaccine discussion. We can require staff members to take the vaccine unless it's going to be discriminatory or against the religious beliefs. But Mary Gerberg advises not adding something like that this time because there's no vaccine available at this point, so you don't want to cross that bridge until you get there. So that's something for maybe next month or the month after that, because it's not going to be readily available. Door County Medical Center is hoping that they can get it for their workers, and then in February they're hoping to get it for the general public. For the general public, they listed as individuals 65 and older or under 65 with health conditions. So it's really not everybody in the general public. Some people qualify, right? But as far as general public, that's not everybody in the general public. That's two subgroups of the general public. So that's something to think about in the future. We do require a TB test by law, and there are caveats if someone refuses to have one of those.
So the question is, do we leave this appendix as it is and add COVID days?
At this point.
Do you have a motion written for those adding COVID days?
I'm finishing up right now.
We don't require flu shots, no.
Okay.
We require, we don't have.
TB is the only test we require at this point. Right.
Okay, my motion would be to approve extending the CARES Act 10 COVID sick days from the employee handbook appendix to June 30, 2021.
Does someone want to
I'll
make
make
that
the
motion? Is there a second to it? Cindy seconded it. Is there any discussion? So leaving the handbook appendix as it is, but adding the COVID days. Any other discussion? No, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Move to new business and the new CDC guidelines for quarantine.
The new CDC guidelines are 7 days with a negative test and 10 days without test and not showing any symptoms. Door County Medical Center and Door County Public Health is hoping the schools in Door County stay with the 14-day quarantine.
Which is what the WIA.
WI went to 7 and 10, went back to 14, so WI is at 14.
So if we are participants in WAA, we really need to stay with 14.
Well, that's for athletics,
For athletics.
but we're talking about during regular school day for the regular
Well, then
students.
that confuses it. Discussion on that? I'm changing it?
I'll go,
Positive,
I ask
negative?
you to do something dirty, I should ask the health department then what I just said, what are the numbers, percentage numbers for the 15 and under age group?
I don't know, Jerry, I put in your packet where it shows you.
I know, that's definitely no.
I know, they won't get, I know, but you also got to remember, we got adults here teaching, so, and we've had quite a few staff out with this, so. That's gonna be the concern is if you have students, this is 14 days to be students or staff, but if you have students coming back and they're asymptomatic carrying it, the 14 days is protecting your staff a little bit more too from catching it, which is the more.
21 days is even better.
What?
21 days is even better.
I don't know, is it?
Sure.
They've only told us 14, they haven't told us the percentage of transmission after 14 days, and I don't know the transmission at 21 days. I do know what they tell me about 7 and 10.
I'm just being devil's advocate.
I know you are.
I'll add to that. I'm going to support Kyle in the 14 days, but I think the public health throwing out the 5% difference is an interesting thing to throw out the community because we never talk about, percentages and risks of every activity in life we take, like driving to school in June or when there's a snowstorm. But I'm good with Kyle's recommendation.
So is that
So
a
are we,
motion on that, or?
I
Motion
guess
is,
we'll take a motion one way or the other. 10 days, 14 days.
I'd make a motion to keep the guidelines we have in place.
there a second to that?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
You know, the World Health Organization now says 6 feet, which is really 3 feet.
I'm sticking with 6 feet, 15 minutes, and 14 days. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean,
I'll buy you a drink when this is all over, all right?
One?
I'll buy you a drink.
There are resolutions that come before the resolution committee at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards Convention. So today is the delegate representative. Is it the delegate? You're the delegate for the resolutions. If you want, we can vote to instruct her to vote to the best advantage of Sevastopol, but this is an opportunity to discuss any of those or give specific direction if you want to talk about any of the specific resolutions.
If I could, things are a little different this year because all of the voting obviously will be virtual. And because I chair the State Policy and Resolutions Committee and serve on the Executive Committee of WASB, I cannot vote for the district. I can only vote as a WASB board member. So this year, and it's only going to be for this year because of the electronic voting, Cindy, as our alternate, will have to do the voting for the district. So that's a distinction from other years. So Cindy and I have talked briefly about this, and I certainly will help her through that process as we engage in it by Zoom. But the board tonight should give direction to Cindy on how you would like her to vote on these resolutions.
Are there any that anyone wants to discuss? Usually pretty benign as they relate to Sevastopol. I think last year we had a couple of them. One was Indian mascots and one was free lunches or something. If there's no discussion for any, would someone like to make the motion to approve to have the delegate vote in the best interest of Sevastopol?
I'd make a motion to have our delegates be voting in the best interest of our school.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none?
but I suppose I think that's wise because when they discuss them that day, some topic will come up that we hadn't thought about, so. Yeah.
And Cindy has-
There will be a lot of discussion that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. In your packet is information, we do this every year, you can log in, take the school board self-evaluation, and it's technically through school perceptions, and they calculate all of the results, and then we will discuss it at our January school board meeting. So try to log in and get that done by January 10th.
Do you have the code or anything for that?
The code is in the packet.
This is
Okay.
all I received, was just what, I thought each person would have an
I
individual
thought we
code.
always got something.
This is all I
That's
have.
all we have to use, okay.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I was gonna call, I called Jean today to ask if we got something specific, and we have not. So I will, I guess before you log in, I'm gonna call WASB tomorrow, that Sue Krause, the representative, make sure this is all we need. And I'll confirm with you via email that this is all we need, or that you've got a different code, and then try to get it done by January 10th.
Okay.
I got it, I got this in the mail, I don't know if you guys got an email, this is all I got. So I just put it in the
We
mail.
usually get a piece of mail with paper copies are to pass out to everybody. We didn't get that this
I
year.
guess they've changed the process, I know.
So I'll call WSB
It says
tomorrow.
watch for an email or go to the website and enter the survey access code, blah, 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 blah.
I'll call tomorrow, make sure that this is all we need, and I'll confirm it with you via email one way or the other. And then we'll discuss that in closed session at the next school board meeting. Next, we have a high school course description booklet.
Thank you. Each year I bring you the high school course description book for approval so we can start registering our kids in January and February. Last month I brought you the new courses that are included in the book as well. Any questions?
Does anyone have questions they'd like to pose to Mr. Bear regarding the booklet itself or courses, individual courses? And if there aren't, we'll look for a motion to approve the course description booklet.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the 2021-22 course description booklet. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you for your work on that, Anna.
Then we have the first reading of some policies, so we'll just kind of take a round robin and go around and make a motion on one, but if there's something you want to discuss, we'll discuss it at the time of the motion. So Cindy, would you like to start?
Sure. Move to approve the first reading of policy 2460, exceptional educational needs.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Carl, you probably see that's got a .03 after it. 2460.03.
No.
No.
First six.
Oh, I
first
missed
six,
that. Okay,
yeah.
I'm one ahead, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Questions or discussion on educational needs? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Keith,
Motion to approve policy 2460.03, independent educational evaluation, IEE.
Second.
questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Motion to approve policy 2700.01, school performance report.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 3120.04, employment of substitutes.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve policy 3131 and 4131, reduction in staff.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I have one. In the second paragraph, the language says the board reserves the right to abolish positions. I recommend that it becomes eliminate positions. You don't abolish positions, you eliminate positions.
Okay.
Is there a legal
I just think it's.
reason we would
I have no.
say
Eliminate.
eliminate versus abolish?
Abolish is, Neil is fine, I think eliminate's fine.
Eliminate, so we would be
I
changing.
think it's a more current term we use in personal policy.
So, so that would be an amendment
Yes, to change abolish to eliminate. It just
to
sounds
use
rude.
the word eliminate instead of abolish. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Keith, 32.
Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion to approve policy, first reading of policy 3215 and 4215, use of tobacco by staff.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
A motion to approve policy 3231 and 4231, outside activities of staff.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 3362.01 and 4362.01, threatening behavior toward staff members.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I move to approve the first reading of policies 4130, assignment and transfer.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That concludes the regular business for the evening, and the board will convene to executive session to consider a plan of promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation. Data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under WISC Act 19.85, Part 1, Part C, for the regular education aid and superintendent evaluation. Is there a motion to proceed to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Aye.
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 Motion carried at 9:20 PM.